Hi, I'm Adrian, and welcome to The Shuffle, where we draw our own conclusions. Today about overthinking. Thanks for being here. If I'm not mistaken, it's showing I have one concurrent viewer. If you'll identify yourself, that'd be great. It's nice to hang out with you. Thanks for being here right on time. We'll see how many others stroll in. But I wanted to talk about overthinking because, first of all, it's part of what I'm doing when I'm doing with tarot. I'm sitting down and I'm thinking. That's why I love it. I love thinking. I love overthinking things. I've got a lot of Virgo. It's fine. I've got a lot of Libra to back it up too. Ambivalence. It's fine. But I wanted to talk about it because it's easy to begin overdrawing cards when you practice with tarot and drawing cards for things that you don't necessarily need to. And it's good to realize where that threshold is, that this is overthinking, and what to do when you reach there, whether it's to investigate your feelings or to take action and actually do things, which it usually is. And, how to recognize it, how to deal with it. It's going to happen. I called this effective planning because it's essentially what it is. The antidote to overthinking is effective planning. It's prioritizing your time well enough that you recognize when it is not a priority to think or plan any further here. And I'm certainly no advocate for underthinking, zodiac symbols aside. I love thinking things through to a point where maybe they were good enough, but if I thought about it and, prettied it up and came to an even better conclusion, it might be better. I love doing that. I love spending that extra time. So, it can be a little gray. Where's the line for overthinking? And drawing it definitively will probably be a little different for each of us. But that's why we're drawing cards, to learn and know ourselves better. So today, since I get to personalize it so much, this is going to be fun. This one's for you and me. I want to draw a card that, really reflects, and here I am setting my intention for the card draw, which is the important way to give it power. I really want to draw a card that reflects our experience of overthinking. Just what it feels like. Just want a card that really captures what is that moment? What does that moment feel like when we've crossed that line into this is needless overthinking. I already know everything that I need to know. I've thought it through all the way. Now it's time to move forward with what I've got. Because I think that'll be insightful for us. I feel good about that card. I've got that drawn here on the table, and I have my Black Cat's Tarot. This was gifted to me by Brittany, who sometimes makes it to this stream while I lived up in NorCal. And so I'm going to find this Three of Swords in that deck, and we're going to look at it from there. What a draw. What a draw. What fun. If you're familiar enough with tarot, you'll know that drawing the Three of Swords is like this heartache card, this real tormented, painful, arriving at a place where you're now suffering the consequences of your own actions, that came by your own hand, and you're consumed with regret, and there it is. Oh, look at this image. Oh, Black Cats is really capturing it in a way that I like. Every deck bringing its own flavor, but here it is. We're looking at like two cats with three swords down on the ground, and it looks like it's pouring rain. There's a handful of birds out there in the sky, but these figures are just kind of hunched over and crying in the rain. There's one little flower on the ground, which is an interesting feature because it contrasts the barren plains they're on with the barren mountains and the deep blue but clear sky aside from some birds. That little flower really stands out, which is interesting and could offer a different meaning to the card than I normally would have found, because in our traditional Rider-Waite, Three of Swords is pretty cut and dry. It's a heart with three swords through it, and it resembles that heartache. And it's interesting because it is an arrival at a place where you just accept the consequences. That's all you can do. You can accept the consequences and get off it. That's all there's left to do. It moves into the Four of Swords, which is this period of rest and respite following the storm. This kind of meditative clearing the mind and just not thinking for a little bit. Once you've arrived at this place where it's like, oh, that sucks and it hurts, and I want to overthink, I want to think my way through it to make it better. When in fact, what I really need to do is just be with the feeling and let it resolve into the fore where I stop thinking. I need to stop thinking about it. Just need to meditate and clear my mind and know that I know everything I need to. I'm good. I'm doing the right thing. This sucks. There's no way to make it better. That's the reality of the situation. I must find acceptance in this place of regret and rejection and pain and desperate. I can walk it back. I can fix it. No, it's fine. Damage is done. Now you deal with it. Anyway, that's a fun, and like I was saying, everybody's personal experience of where's the line of overthinking will be slightly different. And I'm trying to draw cards that will reflect our own, where we can connect. And this is a pretty straightforward one. I'd say that arriving at a Three of Swords, I can see how that would lead into overthinking. And interestingly enough, of course, in my definition of this Three of Swords, I kind of talked about what, that moment would be like overthinking and what you might be overthinking about. And thinking about the consequences of things that went wrong. I'm thinking about hardships that found me and now I have to deal with. And how to approach those. So I am interested in drawing a handful more cards to reflect some other spaces we may find ourselves experiencing overthinking. That moment, how does that moment feel where the line is drawn? It's now thinking that doesn't serve me. It's just thinking that's spinning my tires in the mud. And I've got two of those for the future. I want to talk a little more about this Three of Swords because, to be fair to it, I want to talk about how to navigate this moment. I said don't think about it, but that's not always easy, especially when you're anxiously obsessed over the thing that went wrong and it's possessing your thoughts through that anxiety. It's tough, right? So there's a lot to navigate. There is kind of a road between that place and arriving at not thinking that obviously is pretty difficult to traverse in the moment that we are tending to overthink, And I really do think it's taking a walk through and with your feelings and a certain amount of acceptance. But it could be a number of things. So I'm going to draw some cards like how I would use this in an example reading. I'm going to end up using my spread layout Ready, Set, Go a lot today because it's kind of structured and built around effective planning, which is honestly the right response to overthinking. And I would call this card, this Three of Swords, our get ready of that spread. It is the nature of the place that we cannot change. It is simply where the story begins. I've got a very clear intention. I want to recognize the place where overthinking happens. I want to know how to move out of it and redirect myself so that I'm not stuck in overthinking. I need that blueprint, that roadmap. Ready, Set, Go starts with the base. What are we talking about? If you want to do that, move through the overthinking, it starts here with the Three of Swords. Your path to success of resolving it begins with being in this space. We're in it. It sucks. In my spread, Get, Set, and Go kind of offer the way that we want to act in this situation to bring about what we set out with the reading. In this case, of course, give me a roadmap out of anxiety. Get set, I call my mindset, because this is the part that will include the thinking. My mindset shows me how to frame my mind to situate myself best to handle this situation and move forward. And oftentimes I think, at least in my experience, when I'm overthinking, I'm trying to seek this state. There's got to be some state of mind that I can get in that'll just bring me to life or motivate me or heal me. And I just got to think my way through to that. And that's not always possible, but this card satisfies for me. Satisfies that desire to know, where do I put myself? And I'm going to flip it for us. It is a reversed Knight of Swords. I am going to read with reversals here, though I often talk about it's fine practice without reversals. The Knight of Swords is normally in its upright position this character that is fast moving, going out of their way to make every change that they can and rapidly, in this case, patching everything up. And it's reversed. It's kind of the state of really desiring to be that, but not having the space to. And this kind of keys into some of what I was coaching myself before. There's not to be done to fix this. This damage has happened and it exists and you can't walk it back and put it back together. That's the kind of problem we're talking about. So this desire to put it back together, and it's our winning mindset to navigate these feelings. And that I like. That I like because I can do this. Feel like I really want to do things to solve it and go out and find things to do to solve it, but I can't seem to find anything, or there's just really no way to solve it. I want to solve the problem, right? While you're in that mindset, remembering, of course, now the position in the spread. So it's get, set, and go. That's my mindset. Now we're doing the planning part. And part of planning involves, getting your thoughts in order and your plan in order. And of course, you have to know what you're dealing with, but you also have to know what you have to do. Let's go. The action card. And there's usually, a little hurdle here between getting your mindset and actually doing the thing. A lot of times the thinking space is more comfortable than going with whatever this hard card is, which is a 5, but honestly I pause because I'm not sure of what suit immediately. We've got a cat offering cheese to a couple mice in a little field. I don't see necessarily an indication of wands. Oh, the 4 trees are wands, huh? I bet they are. And there's 1 wand in the cat's hand. I'm going to call this a 5 of wands. Which will be fun. Get to in a minute. But right, there's that essential hurdle that you have to get over from overthinking to acting. And oftentimes, especially when the action required is uncomfortable to perform, it's easy to reside in the more comfortable space of just thinking about it. So oftentimes, and that's why I come to like this spread, ready, set, go, I want to know, once I've done my thinking, and this card has confirmed for me that's all the thinking I need to do. I have learned everything I need from my thinking to be prepared to move forward. And I knew this already. I knew there was nothing I could do to make it better. It's just, crap happens sometimes and you got to deal with it. Whatever. There's not even anything I can do about it, but wait, that sucks. Here it is. What do I do about it? And here's the thing about the 5 of Wands, and I'll explain in a moment the personal story that this spread has resonated about for me. And of course, I drew this with the intention that it would be for, I think at the moment it was 2 of us. I like that our third has snuck in. Thanks for joining us. Really fun in this space. Really enjoy it. The 5 of Wands is, the action we're taking is about asserting yourself, really, and about getting what's yours by demanding it, right? You have to go push through the deadlock. There's always this deadlock in the 5 of Swords. This illustration of the 5 of Swords is very different than the Rider-Waite and deviates from perhaps its meaning in that deck. So it's making me think differently about the card, and I can touch on that a little bit. But it's just like interesting to see this juxtaposition against the Knight of Swords, because our Knight of Swords reversed was suggesting that we would live in the mindset that there was nothing to do to solve it. But the 5 of Wands is more of a go into the fray card, as opposed to not taking action. So it's interesting that I'm getting this message of don't stop pushing, even though there's nothing really that you can do. And I'm looking for the resolution from overthinking. And of course, in this spread, it's suggesting that by employing this mindset and this action, you'll move out of overthinking. It's the intention for this Ready, Set, Go that I went in with. And this is cool. Now I want to share my personal story that lined up with these cards. I am moving. I'm in the process of moving with my beautiful fiance to Sonora. We're very excited. It's a very easy move. We are moving 2.5 blocks down the street. It's going to be great. Going to be great. Very excited. Still make it back to game nights at the house I'm moving out of. Just walk over. It'll be great. Anyway, the spot is super cute. Nice apartment. Good and roomy. They're finishing some renovations on it, right? We can't move in right away. Landlord gives us keys right after the lease is signed. Don't even worry, I'm not prorating February. Come in as soon as it's done. Estimates the 15th. It is now the 18th, and no progress has been made on the renovation for about a week and a half or 2 weeks. And there is no contractual obligation for my landlord to finish them before the 1st. But, you know, I was getting my room filled and had someone on Craigslist who's ready to move in, and we promised them the 22nd because we figured that's a whole week for us to move and this will be fine. And now I'm talking to them like, that's not happening, bud. Sorry, figure your stuff out for a week. Okay, good. You know, and it's a mess. It's a mess. Our move is definitely very interrupted, and all we can do is wait. But can still push for what I want in spite of that, you know? And in a way that satisfies the feeling that I don't have to think about it. If I think to the point where I want to do something about it, but there's nothing I can do, still feel a little unsatisfied. The way that I'm going to push, I have to meet with the landlord's assistant to pick up my mailbox key. And so I'll mention all of this to them when I get a hold of them. And to my landlord, I can just keep pestering. I've messaged him a number of times asking about updates, and every time I get some weird story about how the people doing the renovations were on vacation, or, oh, I have a call with them in 2 days and I'll let you know. Anyway, you know, so that's great. We're taking our time there, apparently, because we're forced to. Feeling very powerless. You know, I lined up this person to move in, and that was a mistake, apparently. We're working with it, you know, rolling with the punches and not relinquishing my rights in the meantime either. So it's good. It's good. That's going well, right? I actually feel good about how that's going, in spite of it coming from this card. I haven't been too bothered by the punches we have to roll with. I've been doing it. It does suck, though. Wish we were moved already. We thought we'd be moved by now. Excited. Couple weeks, this will all be resolved, and it ultimately won't really matter. I wanted to look at a couple more examples of spaces we may find ourselves overthinking in. Now that we've been joined by a handful more, thank you for showing up to the shuffle. Welcome, happy to have you. Feel free to drop your questions or introduce yourself in the chat, which I've seen has no messages, which would make sense if there's so few of us and some of you are, you know, listening in the mid-ground. But I'm beginning to worry that perhaps my chat's not working properly on my end, which would be fine, I suppose, but really take away from the interactivity of the live. That's so much fun. I will offer you this regardless. Another situation, which is inevitably going to become a get ready of a space in which we may experience some overthinking. It is the sun. This is an interesting draw. This one's going to kind of provoke a really interesting thought. The sun is this place in the major arcana where you have realized so much about your true self and really become in tune with and organize the world around you in a way that you're just able to shine and be yourself, and you feel great and whole and fulfilled. So it's interesting to draw that and say, this is a space where you may engage overthinking, which I have defined very clearly to myself, and at least this, you know, this moment here in the shuffle, I have defined as the moment that thinking is no longer serving you in your best interest. It's not moving you forward. It's just slowing you down. And there's nothing more for you really to learn from overthinking that you really need to know. You can just go do stuff now. The sun. How interesting. I talked a moment ago about how I considered, at least to someone like me and perhaps others here, thinking to be a very comfortable space where I just often love to reside. And I do feel this sense of really whole, fulfilled self in that time and space, just thinking with and for myself. It's interesting to have suggested to me that that's a space where I could suddenly start overthinking things just because it was fun, because I wanted to, just because it felt good. No real other reason. Maybe a case where I'm not really getting what I want, surprisingly. And I'm not really getting what I want from the thinking that I'm doing. So that's an interesting thought, and a really different kind of reading than I would have originally considered or thought about happening here, going onto the shuffle. But I do want it to be something that's relatable for us here. So, this one doesn't necessarily have to be completely mine, but I can definitely relate. I'm going to look at a quick get, set, go for this hypothetical that may or may not, be lining up with some of our own personal experience. Anything that you can take away is a bonus. Anything that doesn't serve you, you can leave. Potential mindset that would move you out of the sun here is an Ace of Cups. Now, this is interesting because I was just talking about how it feels good, right? And I just, feel really good about doing it because I want to and it feels good. That's all. I just get that One of Cups feeling, that Ace of Cups. It's a beautiful card. I should show it off. The Black Cat's Tarot has two people kind of sitting, observing another cup that has some cats like swimming in it. And it's real cute, bright, lush, happy green meadow, bright blue sky, beautiful waterfall, all the water overflowing in the cup. It's great. So it's interesting that I was just describing the feeling that I'm already very comfortable with or familiar with a moment ago, reading the Get Ready. And they came up to me again here in the Get Set. This often happens in tarot readings when that card was not necessary to flesh out the message. Kind of already had that, right? It's becoming redundant. I'm asking redundant questions. What's my mindset? You just described your mindset a second ago before flipping the card. But I'll reflect that back to you real quick. I'm like, cool, thanks. Yes, that is my mindset. Yep. But it's interesting. I will say that there's some of what I said that is different than this Ace of Cups. Strictly speaking, I also talked about how it just feels like me and just what I want to do. And that's not really captured by the Ace of Cups. The feeling good from it and the, deriving and having good feelings come out of the thinking, that's here under the Ace of Cups. And I should note that that's a much more focused mindset than the one I was casually employing. So perhaps there is some direction in this card for me, and I should not be glossing so quickly over it. That really tells me the mindset I need to be to not overthink in the moment that I'm just feeling good. I'm vibing. Go. I'm feeling ready for go, so I'm just flipping it over. Go is is that an Eight of Pentacles? It's an Eight of Pentacles. And it's this beautiful cake. I love this because the Eight of Pentacles is about this apprentice who's like mastering their art. And this is someone who's made a beautiful, huge cake. And it's all decorated and such. That's really neat. I like that they're in a walled space because in the Nine of Pentacles, in a moment, we're going to be in our safe walled garden sanctuary. So I just love the subtle hint of that transition in this card being built by the apprentice's continued practice. Okay. This is one of my favorite cards to resemble self-knowing as well, self-study, in addition to the study and development of skills and practice. This card is the practicing moment, where you're just doing the work over and over again to refine it, to become better at it. I think of practicing musical instruments because I was a music major, but anyone that, can relate, practice. Makes closer to perfect, but you're never perfect, right? I've obsessed about that too much. But this is our action to take to move ourselves out of the overthinking in the space where I was just feeling so good about myself that I was just kind of sitting there in my thoughts and not leaving them. Just hanging out in my thoughts, being so comfortable in that space that I'm just don't want to leave. I just feel good. And that's important for me to recognize in my mindset. I feel good. And that's a part of it. That's a part of what moves you forward. And that's so often the case when we're overthinking. It's because there's an unaddressed emotion. And we need to feel and experience the emotion, and sometimes we're avoiding it to move through it. And if we don't really feel it and experience it, it doesn't come through us and move out of us and resolve. It just kind of stays stuffed there, provoking the anxiety the whole time. So here I am recognizing the feeling that's coming up for me that is in fact, somewhat keeping me in it because I'm just wanting the Ace of Cups. The process here is that if I'm spending my time here in my thoughts, I must be learning something. This Eight of Pentacles is always learning. I must be really going deeper with something. Like I'm really learning deeper parts of myself, or I'm really, creating some deeper parts of the project I'm working on, or I'm really, coming up with more and more potent solutions to problems I'm facing. If I'm not really seeing that development, if it's not, something that comes from just my feeling this inspired Ace of Cups, reawakened heart feeling that I can act to by practicing, really committing myself to the work and the refinement of it. If it's not that, it's not necessarily going to get me outside of the overthinking. And I feel, of course, I love the Sun. I love the Ace of Cups. And when I started this spread, I drew what's a space where I might overthink and how do I move out of it? And I've been given a very uncomfortable answer of some spaces that I absolutely love and adore. I'm in fact just residing in a way that stops me from moving on to action. I hold myself in inaction and overthinking because it feels better to think and plan than it does to actually do it. And then the suggested course of action while I'm feeling that is just practice it. No big deal. Just try it out to learn it and practice it and keep doing it over and over. That's all it has to be. This Eight of Pentacles, it's never done. The Apprentice is never done. They're always just, fashioning more and more and more and getting better and better. And when they clock out at the end of the day, they know I could have put in more time and gotten further, but there are only so many hours in a day and I'm tired. But the Apprentice is always driven to keep putting in the work. But it's just practice. It's routine. In a way, and I'm thinking about this, especially in terms of my tarot stuff, and I'm thinking about live streaming on Twitch now. I love planning these. I love being in that space. But the actually doing it part frees up. That's too much performance. It has to be perfect. It's public. I've got to present it well. As soon as I looked at this card and thought it's just practice, I'm just doing it over and over again to get better at it. That's what the shuffle is. Here I am going week by week just to get better at it. That's all it is. That's the path out of the overthinking. Now suddenly I've moved from thought into action. And in a way, that felt more comfortable for me. I was a little hung up, but the suggestion that it's just practice, it's just, the development of the skills was like, okay, that doesn't feel as threatening. I feel like I can do that. And that's the interesting tidbit of relief that I take away from this reading, in this moment. But that's interesting to recognize that if I'm having fun with it, I'm really enjoying the work I'm doing to create content, then am I just sitting there in the thinking phase and not moving on? I should just practice doing it. That was a fun one for me. I have a third, and I wonder if we're the same crew or if we've rotated seats a little bit. But I could keep drawing cards infinitely, of course, and we could come up with an example of what overthinking would be like in any of these spaces. That's why I'm able to draw a face-down card, and then we'll be able to read into it together. But I've chosen these three, and I think I may limit it to that many. Because I kind of want to have to stop it somewhere and finish with a certain intention for this card that the three circuit scenarios that we've considered together. So, Five of Pentacles is this card where there's usually two pariahs sitting outside a church. In this case, we have two cats who look like paupers, kind of like the card would suggest, but they're deep underground. Which is this interesting space where they're shut away in isolation. Isolation is a big theme in the Five of Pentacles. It is a place where you are essentially alone. Alone in a way that you need others to kind of come into the space, and a large part of the Five of Pentacles is coming out of isolation and trying to invite others in. But in its reverse state, it suggests to me this scenario when you can't necessarily call someone in right now. You really do have to weather this one on your own. Or it's a place where you really are struggling. You know, it's a deep depression, it could be. And you're just kind of sinking into that. And it's this perpetual state. It's catatonic, hard to move. That's an easy place for overthinking. Because you're so in your head anyway, right? During that isolation. Now, the interesting thought is, if I'm there and I'm overthinking, what's my mindset to start moving forward? It's a Three of Pentacles. The Three of Pentacles is interesting, and one of the messages that I've always kind of found in it that I love pointing out when it is drawn is that at this point in the Pentacles cycle, you know, the Two was you learning a new thing. And the Three is when, you know, the Two you're like, I'm working it out. And the Three you're like, I'm working on it. I've worked out what I need to do to make it happen. I'm ready to invite other people to help me with it and give direction. I'm finishing this statue here. I know how to finish it. I figured out how I was going to sculpt it already in the Two. And whenever it appears in a spread here, like as a mindset, it suggests to me that you already know what you need to know, and you already have the skills that you need. And when I'm in this deep, depressed state, knowing that there's no further thinking or no further, skill acquisition that I need to do to maneuver out of it is really comforting, because not necessarily feeling super confident in this space. So I think that's a mindset that's really important to embody, the mindset that I already have these skills to deal with this and do this. I can do this. Absolutely, I am able, very able to relax my mind and move out of overthinking and into action. Our go card, our action card, will be the Nine of Pentacles, which is my favorite card in the deck. Love this. This Nine of Pentacles is a cat who is floating precariously in some water surrounded by sharks. Very different imagery than the traditional Rider-Waite or my traditional take on the card. But there's an important feature of the Nine of Pentacles I want to highlight here as it pertains to being the action following the get ready and get set that we already lined up. It really resembles taking care of yourself, self-care, and autonomy. When you've arrived at the Nine of Pentacles, you have already built all that you need to take care of yourself and your own. You don't need anyone else's help to maintain yourself, to do what you need for yourself. You can do it yourself. And it's interesting to see, here I am feeling alone and like I need help from the outside, but I really already have the skills that I need and I can just do it for myself. Perhaps this reversed Five of Pentacles was to suggest a desire to be in that space where I am alone and abandoned and I need other people to help me to get out of it, right? But that's not what's happening. It's just the desire for, or following in excess for this Five of Pentacles, which is usually how I read reversals, an absence or an excess of the card. So it's interesting coming back to that card after seeing the others, I'm suddenly seeing it differently. Where it's suggesting you already know what you need to, you already have the skills that you need. There's nothing new to figure out. There's nothing new to think about. You got this. Take care of yourself. Please take care of yourself. That's all. And then, remembering the intention we drew for all of these to begin with, then you have maneuvered out of the overthinking at the moment that you've really begun to take care of yourself in the ways that you know you needed. It wasn't rocket science that I should feed myself if it's been this long, right? That's a fun one. All three of these, of course, very relatable for me, and I suppose I set them all with the intention that they would be. And I'm hopeful that any of you tuned in here today were able to take something away from it. Perhaps if you're watching it later on YouTube, there's little modicums of wisdom tucked away in this video that maybe are giving you something to take home. I sure hope. If anyone has any questions or would like to get a reading, let me know in the chat. If I haven't responded to anything in the chat yet, it's because my chat isn't updating on my screen properly, which would just be so sad. And I'm inclined to believe that that must be the case. Because it would seem odd that none of y'all would have said anything in the chat, especially with all my prompts. So apologies on lacking that end of the interactivity tonight. I'll have to suss out what it is with YouTube. And in fact, I'm noticing that I'm probably stuttering a lot. It's telling me I'm not getting enough video streamed. Thank you, Spectrum Internet, for the services you provide, and that they're efficient enough for us to get what we can and what we are. I'm going to give us, these past couple weeks, and I'm going to keep this up, I've been giving us a card for food for thought, something to mull over, something to think about, but not overthink. Because I love knowing a suggestion of what I might just start thinking about that'll lead me to knowing something more deeper about myself, or knowing something more about how I can move forward in my situation. Knowing really like, this is around me in my life now, and I could pick up on it if I were really looking for it. And I hope between the stuttering video, you are receiving this. I want to draw this as our food for thought for the week. See what we can't figure out. It's the Magician. I'm going to enjoy talking about this card following what we just discussed on stream. The Magician is this big potentiator who is just able to manifest everything by their will. They just have the means and the magic to make their will real in the world, which is really neat. It's a really cool ability. And it's this fun early place in the cycle of the major arcana. The Fool has just taken their leap into life off the cliff, and they're discovering their ability to be and what they can create through their being. It's really fun. I think anyway. And it's interesting to sit here and talk about all of this overthinking. I imagine the Magician not overthinking at all. They simply create, and they know what they want to create. It's their will. It's their whimsy almost. So there's no reservation in creating it, and it's cool. It's food for thought. We can make a lot of things real just because we wanted to. You know? A lot of things would not happen or come to be if it weren't for our actions and our contribution, our being. That's the Magician. You know? Those things which you create because you exist. You have this power to create things by existing, and it's phenomenal. And the Magician knows it well and employs it. And I talked about I want food for thought to know myself better over the course of this next week. Hoping, of course, it's relatable for you too, and you can walk with me. And I should be thinking about my potential to create, I suppose. That's for us. Thanks for joining me today. It's a real shame about the chat. I wonder if there's a live chat replay that I can go back and experience. I'm gonna close us out here, but I'd like to refresh the page to see if it randomly gets me to see the chat or not. Or it just breaks the stream. I don't know. Maybe I'll see you never, next week, right? Give me a second. Okay, there we go. I'd probably put a brief break in the stream when I refreshed the page, but at least I've seen Ezra. You say, yay, Twitch. I wonder if you're still here. That was probably way back when I mentioned that I'm going to pick up Twitch. But thanks for being here. And I wonder if there are other bits of the chat that didn't come through and how much of my video is going through given Spectrum's real helpful internet. Thank you, Spectrum. But yeah, when I have the Twitch set up and created, I'm creating! I'm going to create that. When I've got that, you'll hear about it. I'll definitely be talking to you. But thanks for being here for my tarot time. I love my tarot time. Love it very much. And I hope I'll catch you next week.